Welcome in, Hawks fans. Your boy Bryce Lewis back at it again for another Believe in Hawks episode. Draft season is heating up. Hawks have 2 first-round picks this year. I haven't really touched on a lot up to this point, but I wanted to go ahead and get into the discussion. And so that's why I have brung on James Barlowe from the Locked On NBA Big Board podcast. James, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Hey, man, I'm glad you coming on, man, and just sharing some of the wisdom, man, about what's happening. Listen, let's dive right into it. You released your first mock draft post-lottery and combine. And for the 13th pick for the Hawks, you have Risacher Fleming as the guy for that pick. Can you go a little bit into why you think that would maybe be a good potential fit for the Hawks at that spot?
So I like Risacher Fleming because I feel like he has some of the same qualities that Tari Eason has for the Houston Rockets. And we're talking about 6'9", athletic, can do a little bit of everything as far as be a role man, play finisher, attacker, closeout. Fleming shot extremely well from the three-point line at St. Joe's this year. And I kind of feel like the Hawks, for where they're picking, front court depth would be premium. Clint Capella's getting a little long in the tooth. And then but you did see the chemistry that Jalen Johnson and Trae Young have. So with Risacher Fleming, you get not that same level of athleticism, but you still get an athlete, somebody who can also pick and pop. It's almost like the little bit that Larry Nance played for the Hawks before, he hurt his hand, I believe, or his thumb. You get some of those same qualities in Risacher Fleming. Now, again, Nance is a better passer. He's older, but Risacher Fleming is somebody who I've been high on throughout this draft process. So I kind of like him there. If who I really would like for you guys to take is not there.
And who is that? Who is this would be a home run for the Hawks if they could get this person?
I think Cedric Howard would be a home run for you. But I had him going to the Bulls a pick earlier. But I mean, I'm a little higher than I guess the consensus. I think the only person who is as high on Cedric Howard as me, that's not related to him, is probably my brother, who's related to me. But I feel like he is everything that you need as far as another wing defender who can do a little bit of everything. Just watching the film, he kind of reminds me of somebody like how Jimmy Butler came out, who was older but still somehow he went from 3-and-D gritty guy to, opportunity came and became more. I'm not saying that Cedric Howard can be exactly like that, but I think he's more than just your 3-and-D stand in the corner guy. Like, he has like some legit game, and he's still continuing to get better. So if he's there, that's who I would take. But according to my mock, I don't necessarily think he will be there, and I think Risacher Fleming is like a great consolation prize.
Okay. And you made a point about the front court and everything, and obviously that's been a big focus for the Hawks from the fan base perspective this offseason. A lot of people are just looking at, needing more shooting, which the Hawks do need, but also more size. I think as well. And so is there any prospect at 13 from a size perspective? Let's just say the center position, because some people are looking at, okay, Kongu's the starter. Who would back up him that you could maybe see being a good fit at 13? Because I feel like the main consensus is that the guys that they would want to take are going to be drafted higher than that. And the guys that you probably would have interest in, maybe you would take at the second pick, the 22nd pick.
Yeah. So if Risacher Fleming and you want to go with just a surefire 5, I really like Thomas Sorber too, freshman out of Georgetown. He measured extremely well. I think he was 6'9". Him and Risacher Fleming both were 6'9" with 7'6" wingspans, which is crazy. But Thomas Sorber, if you or your fans, Hawks fans, get a chance, like, look up the game he had against, I believe it was Providence this year, where he showed you a little bit of everything. Now, he's not the shooter that you would want to be for somebody who isn't a great athlete, but he can defend, he can pass, he rebounds. And I think the shooting, talking to people close to him, like, he's a better shooter than what he was able to show. And his season was cut short due to, I believe, a toe injury. But he's somebody you should also look at the 5 spot if you're trying to, like, shore up your front court depth.
Okay. And I think that's something I think they'll evaluate and look at those positions for sure. Now, there is a name I want to talk to you about, and I don't know if he'll drop that far. I've seen some mocks thinking he might. I've seen some mocks thinking he won't. Your mock actually has him going a pick after the Hawks pick. Colin Boyles.
Mm-hmm.
He's a guy who I think I've seen some people talk about could potentially either be a great fit or an if fit. One reason why people think it could be an if fit is because they feel like with Jalen there, would that necessarily work? Even though like they wouldn't be playing necessarily on the floor together a lot, they maybe just are like, all right, we already have Jalen. Do we need another guy like that in a Murray Boyles? But at the same time, people say really strong finisher, really disruptive defender. Those are things the Hawks, with the way they play, finishing, improving the defensive side of the ball is key. So is that something if he was there, that they should consider, or do you not like the fit?
I like the fit in the sense that in pick and roll with Trey, because Trey is normally going to draw two guys. I think Colin Boyles could be a good passer in that situation. And then obviously, if you want to play him and Jalen Johnson together, like you just throw the ball near the rim with Jalen Johnson, and he's going to dunk everything. My concerns with Colin Boyles is, and why I am higher on Rasheer Fleming than Colin Boyles is, Colin Boyles just can't shoot right now. And like Rasheer, whether people believe in it or not, because it was just 1 year, I think on 4 attempts, he shot like 38% from three. Whereas Colin Boyles might have hit like 10 jump shots his entire season at South Carolina. And again, some of that is, it's not always, in what I've learned from scouting is, it's not what a kid can't do. It's sometimes what the coach asks the kid to do. I don't need you to try to improve your draft stock on my time. I need you to go, help us win some games. But at the combine, for what it's worth, Murray Boyles didn't shoot the ball particularly well. So I think that particular skill is something further down the line for him. But if you buy the defense, if you buy the playmaking, and what initially that wasn't as high on him, but what I did like about him is that he can make plays off the dribble. So like that's another person who I feel like the Hawks kind of struggle with, because especially when Jalen went down, like you lost a significant playmaker. So if that's what you believe in as far as Colin Boyles brings to the table, then I'm definitely okay with him, especially in this draft range.
Okay. Yeah. I think, like I said, I mean, I'm lived in South Carolina, so I've definitely seen his game the last couple of years. And, a guy who, like I said, I've seen people like really be high. Like it's interesting just when you're evaluating, because everybody views the game differently. So it's just interesting to see, okay, what can you take away from each person's evaluation of why they really like this kid or don't like this kid. So another name I'm gonna throw at you is Carter Bryant. What do you think about that fit at 13, or do you think that's too high, or what are you looking at when you think about Carter Bryant to the Hawks?
I'm kind of torn on Carter Bryant. Again, I get the idea, but the usage was so low in a sense that it's like at 13, and again, you look at the Hawks timeline, maybe I can go with an older guy there. So like I mentioned Cedric Coward, who I do have the Hawks taking at 22. If he's there, I like Meet Clifford a lot because he can do a bunch of everything. And I just kind of feel like with the Hawks, with Jason Tatum going down, Miami, who knows what they're going to do. Like they shouldn't, and if everybody's healthy, they shouldn't be a play-in team next year, right? So an older wing who still can like go and contribute right away would probably be my choice if I were going to pick a wing. Carter Bryant is interesting because he checks a lot of those boxes. It's just that from my evaluation, it's like it's kind of hard to see if he's going to be able to do more. And again, I get it. You need those defenders. You need those play finishers. You need those low usage guys. It's just at that selection, I see people that really love him. I kind of like him is what I'm really trying to say.
Okay. That's fair. So I'll ask you about a player. I guess you could say this is kind of starting our discussion at 22, the other pick that they have. What do you think about Hanson Yang? The Hawks were one of the teams that did go over to China, sent some scouts over there to evaluate him. He's a guy who's impressed a lot, I think, through workouts and other things. What is your view on him as a player? And I guess, again, like, do you think there could be a fit there in Atlanta, maybe at that 22nd pick?
So I don't know how long you've been keeping up with me or if you did some of the research, but I've been a Hanson Yang fan since last season. I thought he could have came out last year. I thought he was that good. Every time I see him play, he like dominates in the sense that, like, okay, for example, Alex Sarr was the number 2 pick in the draft last year. They went head to head in, I believe, the U18s 2 summers ago. He bullied Alex Sarr. Ethan Almanza, guy who's hovering around top, 75 players in this draft and last year, could not guard Hanson Yang. I think Hanson Yang, and again, I got to see him at the combine. He is a really, really good basketball player. Like, people want to hold the CBA, the Chinese Basketball Association, against him. He can legit play. And like the first day at the combine, he was rusty, and there's like a 18-hour time difference between China and the Midwest. That second day, he figured it out, and he had no point guard play, like really at all. I'm a big believer in this game, and as good as he is, I still think he needs at least a year or two before you can like really count on him to contribute, just because of the speed of the game. Like in China, you have 2 Americans on the floor at a time, and obviously here it's way different. But like, I know a guy that played in the CBA, and he's like, man, that dude is ready to go. So he can pass, jump shot is improving, and he is physical play finisher. I think he can be like, if the defense catches up, he can be like Zubac, where not only is he a play finisher, but we can give him the ball on the block against other bigs and also smalls. Like, I really am a fan of his, and I think if he's there at 22, I wouldn't be opposed. Again, understand Hawks fans that it may take him a while to get it going, but I think he's a surefire first-round pick.
Yeah. It's crazy because I feel like the Hawks have a very underrated development program. They really do use their G League system, Skyhawks, very effectively, I would think, because that's where a lot of guys like Jalen kind of was able to kind of play when they weren't playing them. Mo Gay as well. Vic Krejci, other thing, guys who have contributed or were in the rotation this past season. So that wouldn't be a terrible idea if they went in that direction. Okay, so we're going to change this a little bit.
Okay.
So we're going to kind of still talk about the draft, but last year, if you go back to last year, Zach was the first pick for the Hawks last year, first overall draft pick. I wanted to ask you, what did you think about Zach going into the draft? And then now a year has gone by. Did he exceed your expectations? Is he right where you expected him to be? Or is he worse than what you thought?
So that's interesting. I didn't think Zach was the best player coming into that draft. I personally would have taken Sarr first, because, again, I liked Jalen Johnson, not before the year where he blew up, but my thinking is if I got an athletic 5, I think Sarr should have played the 5, but an athletic 5 and I got an athletic 4 and I got Trae Young, throw the ball at the rim, we're flying or running down the court. And then I thought the best player coming out the draft was going to be Stephon Castle. And at the time, he was like, I'm not going anywhere where I can't play point guard. But at the same time, I didn't believe that he was. I just think you're a playmaking wing, which is fine. But for Risacher, he was like, to me, basically what he is now, right? Can he shoot? Yes. Get out in transition, cutting? Yes. And I feel like for him, he's in the perfect situation because he's not, A, asked to do too much because Trae is going to set everything up, and B, like, you're playing with Trae Young. So it's like your skills that you have right now are being like put to use in a good spot. I don't think Risacher, and it's not a knock on him, I don't think he has the year that he has in Washington. You know what I'm saying? Because in Washington, he was asked to do more, put the ball around more. Not to say that Washington had expectations, but it's like his things that he needs to continue to work on would have been like magnified, because they probably would have asked him to do more, because on that team, it's kind of like everybody's trying to figure it out. Whereas when he's drafted by the Hawks, it's like, okay, this is the hierarchy, finish plays. And with that being said, even though I wasn't sold on him being like the number 1 pick, he exceeded my expectations because, he ended the season strong. He does have these eruptions where he can go for 25, 30. Like, those are good. And again, I think the off season for him is going to look like get stronger, get a little bit better off the dribble, and then just keep building from there. And again, as long as Trae Young is there, which is hopefully forever, his job won't have to be extremely hard because he's got what I feel like either the second or third best passer in the NBA on his team.
Hey, one thing I will say watching him is I think too coming from, playing professionally in France, you can see the maturity. There's a little bit more maturity to his game at his age than I think a lot of kids, maybe you say in America, would have. Because I hear people say constantly about the system in America, AU system, college system. A lot of guys rely on athleticism, and then they don't actually become skillful sometimes, so they get to the league when you have to become skillful to make it. For Risacher, I feel like a lot of people felt like I said, the ability to cut. People feel like cutting is a lost art. He was a good defender. Even though he has the length and in the size, he had good positioning and things of that nature. And I think is that a fair assessment to say like, hey, yeah, his game in certain aspects was maybe more mature than the average 19-year-old.
Yes, I agree. And I think just like the role that he's in, the role that he's played last season in France is very similar to the role that he played for the Hawks. So it was like almost like a seamless transition for him because he wasn't like, hey man, I need you to go run pick and roll. No, we don't need you to do that. Stand in the corner, make shots, cut, slash, get out in transition and be an athlete. His thing going forward, obviously with the strength, but he just has to be like consistent, and it's not necessarily be consistently average 20, but be consistently aggressive. And that was one of my major things with him. Again, understand that he was extremely young last year, but like, especially, and again, we're in the NBA now, but it's number one pick, you can't have 6, you can't have multiple 6-point games. You got to turn those in. Your bad games got to be 15, 17 eventually as he continues to mature.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Sorry for the quick switch up. I just like, hey, man.
No, you're fine.
ADHD here. But all right, so let's get back to it. So 22nd pick. So you kind of mentioned him a little bit earlier. At the 22nd pick for the Hawks, you have Nick Clifford. Sorry. You call him a Swiss Army knife.
Yes.
So I know you kind of mentioned him earlier, but is this another pick where you're looking at the fit with Trae Young? And thinking, oh yeah, this would be. I think it was right here.
And it's a combination of. Okay, so I watch Hawks games. I've watched Hawks games for years. I watched Hawks games. They had Joe Johnson, but like when Trae sits down, and you got Jalen Johnson, right? Those are your 2 primary ball handlers. Dyson. He handles the ball some, but then obviously you trade for Caris LeVert. Caris is 30, right? And 30 in the NBA could look like 31 in the NBA does not always look like 30 in the NBA. Sometimes they fall. I'm not speaking a fall off on the Caris LeVert, but you got to prepare for the future. Unfortunately, like Kobe Buffkin hasn't been able to stay healthy, and then you traded away Bogey. So it's like I'm thinking Hawks go with a wing, and this is why I prefer for the Hawks more so than a Carter Bryant. Give me a wing that can do a little bit of everything. Not necessarily go out there and average 20, but you know what? He might be able to get me 12, 5, and 4 on any given night, and he can, play alongside Trae. Nick Clifford is like, some people compare him to Josh Hart, and you see Josh Hart plays tomorrow. He plays winning basketball. So like, and Nick, we hope that Nick is a better shooter than Josh Hart. So if you're getting that 6'5", 6'6", a Josh Hart type player, like you absolutely would want that because he's going to rebound. He can guard 1, 2, 3, 4 for you in spurts and make open shots. And then like I'm really big on guys being able to do more than just stand there and shoot, because when we chase you off the line, what do? Josh Hart, while he's not the greatest shooter, he's attacking the glass, and in transition, he finds guys like Nick Clifford, especially in this role at Colorado State, where he just had to do everything for them to be competitive. I feel like his game is going to translate at the NBA level, and I really think that will complement Trae Young and the Atlanta Hawks.
Hey, listen, and I think that's one of the biggest things too, is you obviously just want to find people who are going to complement your best players and just continue with the system which they're trying to do, which is a lot of ball movement, a lot of motion, and just a lot of. I think the Hawks had one of the best shot quality. Like it was like a statistic about shot quality. It was one of the best in the league. It's just completing plays, finishing plays, things of that nature. Now, I want to mention a name that I think is interesting. I've seen some people mention him. Danny Wolf,
Mm-hmm.
Michigan. Skillful center, can
Mm-hmm.
pass. That's one of his strengths. Um, I've seen some people think he maybe he's not the most physical center in
Mm-hmm.
the world, but a skillful guy. And obviously, we've seen skillful centers kind of take a rise in the game. You have the regular guys like a Daniel Gafford, tall, block shots, athletic. And then you
Mm-hmm.
have skillful guys like Sengun and Joker. So, what would you think about if you're 22 and you're the Hawks and Danny Wolf is there? Is that something you like, or do you feel like with the way he plays, maybe that's not ideal?
I'm not that high on Danny Wolf in particular, and
Mm,
especially for the Hawks. Like he's talented and he can pass, but he kind of like at Michigan, he had free reign to make every pass, and he turned the ball over a lot. Now, can he space the floor? Yes. Can he shoot? Yes. I think he should be an okay rebounder, but
mm,
it's almost like you're getting you're getting George again, Niang again, right? And again, Niang did help. He's more athletic than Niang, probably more
mm,
skilled, but it's almost like you need you need somebody to rebound and get in the trenches and also be a play finisher, not just somebody who's gonna like spot up. So like I think if Wolf is not the guy, Maxime Reynaud has been climbing the draft boards.
mm.
We talked about Hanson Yang. Maybe it's a reach at 22, depending on who you ask. There's a young fella out of Penn State, Yannick Conan Niederhauser. He's an athletic rim runner, rim finisher. He had like the best measurements by far. And again, if I'm a big and I'm athletic, please sign me up to play with Trae Young because all I
Mhm.
got to do is screen and dunk. And he plays far above the rim. But Danny Wolf is just different because he's somebody who, and his draft stock has improved. He's somebody that kind of like needs the ball in his hands for him
Mhm.
to get loose. And I don't know how much you're going to get from him playing with Trey and next to Jalen Johnson, is what I'm saying. So he may not be like the play finisher. He's more of a play making big,
Mhm.
and you already got Jalen for that. So I don't know how that the rotation works. If like where is he at in pick and roll? Yeah, he can spot up and make plays, but you can't necessarily move him to the dunker because that's not where he's going to do his damage.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, like I said, he was a guy who, like I said, again, draft season. Everybody has opinions.
Yeah.
It's like some people like him. Yeah, because I feel like
Hmm.
some people watch film like, why wouldn't we want this? And then it's just
Yeah.
like you got to think about fit, skill set. Okay, who he's playing with, and it's like, all right,
Hmm.
would he be great for that?
Hmm.
Especially because like a lot of Hawks fans look at a Kongu and it's like, all right, we probably want a player who can do what a Kongu can't, which that's more of
Yes.
a size thing, a rim protection thing,
Yeah.
where obviously a Kongu's made strides as a shooter. I
Hmm.
think he has a very underrated inside the paint game. I
Hmm.
think there's a reason why you've seen him explode at times, especially when he became a starter.
Yeah.
And him and Jalen have played really well together because I think the net positive is like they have a positive net positive on the floor
Hmm.
together and they have a good offense and defensive rating. So, okay, I'll throw another name at you.
Okay.
What about Will Riley?
Will Riley can
Mm.
shoot. Will Riley can make some plays. He's just if you think if you thought Risacher was skinny last year, Will Riley makes Risacher look like a bodybuilder. Like I think he bulked up to like 170 this year.
Mm.
So, but as far as just shooting the ball, I like him at 22. I almost feel like the Hawks have to go with these two picks, big and a wing. And
Mm.
it just kind of depends on, where the cards may fall. But Will Riley does shoot the ball well. I think he is playmaking and attacking off the dribble are something that he's getting better at, and he's shown flashes of it. He's just not physically strong enough. And I
Mm.
think it's going to take him a couple of years because he's not the athlete that Zachary is, right? Where,
Mm.
sometimes you can, the physicality of the NBA slows Zachary down. But at the end of the day, he's 6'10, 6'11, and he's athletic. Will is not as athletic, so he's not going to get that advantage off because he just doesn't have any strength. But he shot the ball well, and he kind of had an up and down season, but he's somebody again. Does he work next to Trey? Absolutely. Are you going to be able to play him right away on a team that I feel like should be a playoff team? Possibly not.
Mm. No, that's fair. Okay. Okay. Um, so Since you do watch the team, I'll ask you a couple more questions and I'll let you go. So first, I want to ask you about Dyson. Obviously, most improved player in the league last year. Um, Coming out, people I think knew he was a good defender. The biggest thing was offense, especially even after the first couple of years with New Orleans. You really never saw him placed in a role that allowed him to kind of grow as an offensive player. And I think this year he was placed into a role, obviously, as a starter right next to Trey, where he was able to kind of grow into that role. I think we kind of knew he had a floater. I think we kind of saw that expand a little bit. I think he needs to improve as a shooter, though I will say after the All-Star break, he technically shot around 50%, but it was like on like 2-3 shots. But in his release is not that fast, so that's the reason why I've noticed watching him. He doesn't take threes if your defender's in close proximity. What do you think about where he is? Like, were you surprised by what he did? And how much better do you think he could maybe get, especially on the offensive end of the ball?
So I was surprised. I mean, the average person thought that, you gave up DeJounte Murray and you got Dyson Daniels. Like, I mean, again, I know that DeJounte was his best when Trey was out and vice versa, but he made a huge jump. If you'd have told me he was going to be a 14-point per game guy, I probably wouldn't have believed you. The shooting did improve, but he's got to do it again because, now that you're on this, you're not to go from his role in New Orleans to now you're on the scouting report. You're going to play 33 to 35 minutes a night. And teams are going to dare you to shoot 34% they're going to still dare you to shoot in the NBA. And I think he was like 59% from the foul line. So they're really going to be like, you know what? Let's see if this year was an anomaly. But him winning most improved player, like that's what that award is for guys that come out of nowhere who, some people may think are a shoe-in or, I guess some people would say the most attractive thing about that trade was the picks. Well, you end up getting the starter, defensive player of the year caliber player. So with him, it's going to be, can you do it again? Like, prove it. Do it again for him. But he played extremely well. And like I said, I was pleasantly surprised. I'm glad that he's playing well because, people think that the G League Ignite program is the biggest scam in the world. And I'm like, they got a most improved player out of it. Other guys have played well. I mean, what do you expect from a bunch of 18-year-olds playing against grown men? So he, excuse me, his thing is, like I said, do it again because it's the NBA. One thing I've learned watching all these years is that, you can catch the league by surprise, but once they figure out who you are, you got to prove yourself again.
Yeah, definitely. And I think Dyson, he's always talked about what he wants to try to improve. I know they had him kind of doing some backup point guard once Kobe went down, which he said he pretty much played the majority of his career growing up, even though I think Hawks rather use him as a 2-3 for the most part in the best of his skill sets. And then, just expanding on the offensive game, trying to become a better all-around offensive player because he mentioned he wants to help take pressure off Trey offensively in that load. And obviously, I think that's a big part of his next step moving forward.
Yeah, especially until you get that wing that's going to put you over the top. And if you can't get that wing, you got to do it by a committee. So he's going to just have to keep it up because, they're going to keep blitzing Trey until, somebody else figures out. But again, I think the team was trending up. They're not a playing team if Jalen doesn't get hurt.
Yeah. That's been pretty much the consensus about if Jalen was here, it would completely change what season probably would have been.
I'm a big fan of his. I talking to my brother who's been covering the draft longer than me, and I'm like, how does Jalen Johnson fall? And it's like, oh man, he went to Duke for like 10 games and this. I'm like, I don't care if he went to Duke for half a class a day. Like, man, that dude can play. I mean, I'll figure all that other stuff out later. As long as he didn't do anything illegal, man, we'll be all right.
Listen, Jalen, the biggest thing is, sadly, when we had Nate McMillan, he didn't believe in development. So obviously when we got him, he didn't have a plan for him. And so I noticed when Quinn got here and he started giving Jalen more run, the biggest thing for Jalen was he had the talent. You could see it. I say Jalen's one of those guys you could watch a game, be a casual, and you can tell like, oh yeah, he's a good player. And it's just confidence for him in reps. He just needs the reps and he needs the confidence. And if he does that, he can take the next step. I mean, he averaged 20 and 10 and 5.
You guys got him on this. Was it 30 million? Yeah, he got him.
He had like 34, 30. Like it was like 30, 35.
Yeah, that's a discount for when he gets in hole 82. Yeah.
Listen, everybody wants the Jalen Johnson stay healthy campaign because then we want to see what that's going to look like.
Yeah. And then you can really assess this team. Okay, this is what we really need here. Is Jalen our third option, or could he emerge to be a second option? We can get over the hump because, like, who was the second? Well, you had Bogdan, obviously Trey. The year they made that run in the playoffs, Trey was great in pick and roll, right? And Bogdan shot the ball well. But it was like, who was, I can't remember who was
John Collins.
Second. Who?
Was it John Collins?
There you go. John Collins worked because, if you played him especially during the regular season, but you played him at the 5, he was a matchup problem because he was dunking everything, and then he developed the 3 ball. And it's kind of like Jalen is John Collins with guard skills, So, like, you can almost try to repeat that success. You just need that quality shooting wing that you got from Bogey those years when he was healthy.
Yeah. And I think, too, I mean, Jalen, I think biggest thing people want for Jalen is maybe more self-creation.
Yeah.
Obviously, coming downhill, he's a monster coming downhill. That's why I don't know what your player comp for him was, but I know when people talk about him, it's like, what is his ceiling? What is his player comp? And, I've seen Scottie Pippen. I've even seen LeBron. I mean, people think he can be like.
I got a realistic one for you. If he could turn into what Pascal Siakam is for Indiana, where I can bully smaller guys and I'm too quick for bigger guys. Obviously, he's a better athlete, but like Pascal just, you look up, he has 21 every night. And sometimes it's as a play finisher, but sometimes it's as a playmaker for myself and for others. If Jalen can become like that in the half court, then I think you got something there. A good building block, because the East is, Boston just crumbled. The East is wide open.
Yep. And, some people think Cleveland's frauds, and, it's just.
Whole other story.
Oh, man, yeah. Well, actually, it leads me to my last question I was going to ask you. One of the big decisions the Hawks have to make this offseason is, some people are wondering, do you blow up the court? Obviously, we are awaiting word from Giannis's camp if he's going to be out. Some people have said, okay, if that happens, Hawks need to get in that sweepstakes and give it a shot. Obviously, the issue is that the Bucks are going to probably gut the team.
Oh, yeah, I don't know if you have enough assets for that.
I've said we don't have – I've said I don't think our picks are that great that we have.
Yeah.
Like, player-wise, people are saying you probably are giving up Jalen probably. And then people are deciding, are you giving up OO or are you also giving up Zach?
The problem is Milwaukee. If I'm Milwaukee, I want everything you got. And like you said, the picks are what really make these things go, especially for a player like Giannis. And I don't know if the picks this year aren't sexy enough. Because if I'm Milwaukee, I'm like, San Antonio, you got 2. You just got the rookie of the year. I need those 2 at the minimum because Giannis is a generational player. I don't necessarily think you need to get into the Giannis sweepstakes because if he goes west to San Antonio or even Oklahoma City who has picks, well, Milwaukee is not a playoff team next year. Boston is probably a playoff team. We just don't know exactly what it looks like. They're definitely beatable now because their best player's out and that tax apron is about to beat them upside the head. Do you think New York is going to come back? Sometimes these things are one and done, but this is their second year, I guess, of the long run. Indiana looks like they're here to stay. So you can almost mirror what Indiana does. They got a lot of depth. They got guys that pick up full court. You could try to mirror that, but I feel like I'm waiting to see what who has the best package. And if it's Giannis leaving, then we're going to stay this thing out because the East is open.
Yeah, I think the big thing is like a lot of things when you think about teams' cores, you think about project. Everybody projects. You're trying to project. And so some people are like, is the Hawks' current core good enough to really break through? You know, because I think I think the timeline's weird because of Trae, because of the whole Trae Young wants to make the playoffs thing, which, as we both said, like if Jalen was healthy, they probably would have. And so, you know, people are like, should they run it back, basically, with the guys? Give a second year to Risacher, let him grow. Dyson, second year as a starter. Jalen can stay healthy. Another year, and then retool the bench, which I think would be the biggest thing.
Yeah, so, I agree with that. Logic, like I said, Jalen getting hurt, he was having a career year. He has all-star level talent, depending on how things shake out. I would give him another, you know, Trae's 26? Like, he's not old by any means. And he did, I know that there's the clips of him, you know, playing whatever defense against Davion Mitchell, but he did improve as a defender this season. And there's only going to be so much he can do at, 6 foot, $165. Yeah. That's why you got to build guys around him and then continue to just harp on him, putting up, a consistent effort on that other end. But I personally would run it back. I wouldn't trade for Giannis. I don't think you have enough. I love Giannis again. Not say I wouldn't trade for him because I just don't know if you have enough for even it to work. Yeah. Because then when you give up everybody, you don't want to look like the Atlanta Bucks, like the team just lost.
So especially today's NBA with the CBA, and you're seeing how team roster construction is so much more important. Like, people are thinking about Denver, like, what do they do? Like, they're flirting with the second Abram, and you have to give Christian Brown an extension. Yeah, and you're like, do you trade Michael Porter Jr.? Do you trade Aaron Gordon? Like, I mean,
and they haven't hit on rookies except for Brown. So, like, that's why it's important that, drafting, you get these guys on these rookie deals and they can contribute, sooner than later, then you're in a better position. But, like, I don't know what Denver's going to do because you got to play Chris. He's played well, but at the same time, their ownership isn't trying to spend any money. So, and they already run a 5.5-man rotation as it is now. So, what do you do?
Wait, is Westbrook the half?
Man, Westbrook taketh away, man. He won them just as many games as he lost them. It's going to be interesting to see in 5 years what his legacy is.
Listen, Russell Westbrook, man, the most fascinating player to ever play the game.
He's a different guy.
Yeah, for sure, man. But hey, man, I appreciate you coming on, man.
No problem.
Talking ball with me for sure. Let people know where they can find you.
So you can find me on, I call it Twitter. I'm always going to call it Twitter because I signed up for it and it was Twitter. It's at Draft Junkie James. Or you could just search my name. I think I should pop up because I have my real name on there. Follow me, man. You ask me a question on there, I answer. I love talking basketball. So,
hey, man, talking hoop, man, it's a great thing. And obviously, guys, y'all know where to find me. Brycey_2K on Twitter. If you enjoyed this episode, hit the subscribe button, like the video, leave a comment down below about anything we discuss during this video as we approach closer to the draft. Like I said, Hawks scouting, even though they're looking for president of basketball operations, they're still scouting, still looking at guys, still trying to find the right fit. There's some talent in this draft that could potentially come in and help. Because I feel like the range consensus is 13, probably rotational guy, 22, maybe someone you put in the G League, let him develop throughout the year. So we'll have to see how that all turns out, man. But like I said, I appreciate you coming on, and that's about it for us, guys. That's James. I'm Bryce. See you next time.
They call him the Great Barrier Thief. Brunson spins and stolen by Daniels.
And a steal. Bane trying to drive. And it's stolen by Dyson Daniels.